pleased to have Darcy Schoening on with us. She is
who no one's pronounced her name correctly in the 4 years.
so yeah. My first thing is no one knows what I'm talking about because I've been saying her name wrong forever. So Darcy, I am so sorry for that. But Darcy is the only grassroots announced so far candidate running for the Colorado Republican Party chair. That position is going to be voted on March 29th. So wanted to get Darcy on and explain things. So first off, Darcy, hey, thank you once again and welcome.
Yeah, great to see
Thanks
you.
for having me. It's good to be back.
Okay, so I got to ask you this though, because Chuck was listening to you. You've been making the rounds. You're on the Jeff and Bill show on KNUS. Britta Horn was there too. Did you really serve her with the lawsuit there? Okay, tell us about that.
That's good.
That would have been
good.
That should have been live streamed.
Yeah.
I have a video. I did, and the parties of the lawsuit have been evading service, and I knew she was going to be there, so why not?
Well,
Absolutely.
And here's the thing, and then Britta went, and this is why we need grassroots people in there. Britta then went on a tirade about that. It's like, I'm sorry, Britta Horn, the Rhino candidate.
Because you were a plaintiff a few months ago suing all the officers, the real officers of the Republican Party.
A meeting costing the state $100,000. It's like you guys are the one, and they want to say you're the problem, Darcy. That's
right. And that's the crux of the issue. And the reason why I felt like it was important to deliver that lawsuit to her today is because we're not okay. So to be unified, as they like to continue talking about, we have to all be working towards the same goals, right? We can all agree that that the Democrats should leave our children alone. We can all agree on our Second Amendment rights. So if we come together around those issues, that's unity. What she's talking about is not holding people accountable. And over $100,000 was removed from state GOP funds to defend the chairmanship of Dave Williams and to defend Anna Ferguson and Hope Schepelman. Now, no matter how the rest of the party feels about those individuals, that's $100,000 that was given by donors to get candidates elected and to fund the party. And so we have to show them our due diligence that money is being put back. And the only place that it can come from is the parties that initiated the lawsuit.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, so they initiate the whole thing and then they complain that you're being divisive by, it's ridiculous. Well, I'll just, because I wanted to give you a chance to go ahead and talk about
what are the 3 or 2 or 10 main points of your campaign?
Sure. So as you guys know, you've been working with me for a while now. Kids are really, really important to me. Education is, this is the battle of our lifetime. We are battling. I know it's an overused term, but we're battling for the soul of our children. We've seen the Democrats have come in and tried to destroy our kids. So education is a huge priority. Localities to that end, cities, county commissions. Just because Jared Polis and the legislature passed terrible laws here doesn't mean that we have to accept them. As you guys have seen over the last year, I've opted school boards out of mental health assessments. I've opted school boards out of the pronoun bill. I've worked with counties and cities over the last year. For example, the safe spaces gun law. Several cities and counties opted out of that, right? And that's what we have to be doing. We have to be taking our conservative areas and working with them to get things done. And listen, that's how we show, because issue number 2, the unaffiliated, that's how we show the unaffiliated why they need to vote Republican. It's not by watering down our values. It's not by becoming pro-choice. It's by showing them that we in Monument, we in Castle Rock, we live better than you guys in Denver. We're safer. We're happier. Our kids have better test scores. So I'm really going to be focusing on the localities, education, and the 2025 school board races. I've already been working with some donors who are really concerned about education, and they have pledged over $150,000.
Wow.
So as we go into the
school boards,
I've created an initiative for that. And then that will give the donors more confidence, as well as the voters, that in 2026, we can really flip some seats.
Right. Well, one of the things too that you guys have done, and I know, and you.
Well, I'd like her to finish out what the program is.
Oh,
so that was 2.
Okay, Chuck, do you have other stuff too, or other points you want to make?
So my other biggest point, and it's something not a lot of people talk about, is the data and the infrastructure, right? So data and infrastructure is so important that we can't fight, we can't fight for candidates. We can't get candidates elected if we don't have on-point data, if we aren't out there building an infrastructure, not just for ourselves, but for future generations of the Colorado GOP to be successful.
Okay. We were, interestingly, I was meeting with Bruce Baker today, who was running for mayor of Westminster City Council. Go Bruce. And one of the things we were talking about, as he says, and the Democrats, when you talk about infrastructure, do this very well. You look at, they put female candidates, and I think it was Emily's list, but now that's kind of defunct. But what they do is they elect into city councils.
It's divided, it's not defunct.
Okay. And then they scooch them into legislative seats, right? So a lot of the very progressive candidates in like the Adams County area started off on Westminster City Council, and that's intentional, right? They do it there. And you're right. The Republicans have a harder time doing that. And I think that is something that's good. So you maybe start off as a whatever, right? And then, but then you kind of build, and is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yeah, so it build our benches, and that's literally what it is. It's building our local benches who then go on to become state and federal leaders, but it's also building up our donor network and just instilling confidence not only in the donors, but the community that we can win these things.
Right. One of the other things too, I think you've done, because I've seen your fingerprints on this, and I mean that in a good way, is because I get the emails, is it's not just like you said, the gun thing, right? You don't just say to cities, oh, we need to protest this. You give them a roadmap and a template to follow so they can actually show up and do it. And I think talk a little bit about that, because I think that's important.
Sure. So, just because the legislature passes a law or Jared Polis creates an executive order doesn't mean that that's where these things die, right? So I'll use the Safe Spaces gun law as an example, since you brought it up. It would be really easy for every county and city in Colorado to say, okay, you can't bring your firearms into our town hall anymore. You can't bring them into our buildings. But that's not, the Constitution wasn't written to say that if you bring a gun into someone's safe space, that you're breaking, it just doesn't work that way. So we have to look at the laws and then look at the local laws and figure out, what can I do to protect these residents, to protect this locality from this law? Sometimes it's an opt-out. Sometimes it's just not complying with it at all. Sometimes these laws, like House Bill 1039, the pronoun bill, it is a matter of the law states you have to write a policy. Well, you know how CASB is, you know how those woke agencies are. So if somebody like me comes along and says, look, I wrote the policy for you, then you have hundreds, thousands of kids that are now protected as much as they can be.
Right. So
okay. I've been doing with these policies, just, if you can get pockets of kids, pockets of families, I mean, that's a huge difference in those people's lives.
Well, and you give them something concrete to do. And like I said, a template to follow, rather than just people like, well, okay, I'm opposed to that, but I don't know what to do. And you're like, well, here's what you can do. One other thing I wanted to get you, because I know they always bring this up and say, oh, we had seats where people weren't running for office, as if somehow that's like your fault. I know you guys worked, and you, again, I'll give you credit for this, did a lot of work also in terms of getting, it's not just like you snap your fingers and Republican candidate, or like you guys weren't trying. And in fact, you did a great job. So talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So I think I came on your show and talked about the out candidates. And it was, of course, the opposition wanted to put out, oh, the Colorado GOP didn't find candidates. Some of them wanted to blame me because I was leading the candidate initiative. But sometimes they're just things that happen, right? We had a candidate, I forget which House district it was. She didn't show up the morning of assembly because she was in a fight with her husband. Now, I know. And then another one forgot to turn his paperwork in, right? So unless I, Darcy, was spending the night at those people's houses and making sure they had no family issues and paperwork issues and walking them to their meetings, sometimes there are just things that happen. And then, of course, there are districts where which those are, where it's really hard to find somebody. Right. Now, to that end, my team, I'm about to release a program to start recruiting candidates right now for 2026. I had a reporter ask me the other day, hey, is there anybody declared for AG yet? Not that I know of, not any Republicans. So let's start working on it.
Right. Well, and I think, and that's.
Well, I'll give you my 2 cents. Here in Adams County, there were, I don't know, various seats that weren't filled. And my answer to that is, who cares? The actual problem we had, like Julie and I are in HD 29. It's an overwhelmingly Democratic district. It's an overwhelmingly House district. We convinced some great, really nice guy, but you got to be a little crazy to run where you're going to have, you can't possibly win. And in Adams County, this last election, Adams County had a great result because it had
Gabe Evans.
Gabe Evans. Why did we have a great result in Adams County? Well, we had a great result because Gabe Evans is owned lock, stock, and barrel by Americans for No Prosperity. And they poured millions of dollars into Adams County, and they ballot harvested. For the first time ever, a Republican actually ballot harvest and had to get out the vote. And so on election day, they knew how many people who were regular ones or not so regular ones hadn't turned out their votes and went and got them, which is what you have to do if you're going to win a statewide election, except it'll cost an incredible fortune to do. But that's what it takes to win. And during that, if we'd taken, and we had a great chair for HD 29,
Kathy
Stroud. She should have spent all of her time in one of the House districts and Senate districts we lost by just that much. She would have been so much better, so much more valuable if she had spent her time in those 2 districts. We should take all the ones that are worthless and focus in on the few we can win, because that's the only way you win elections. And for Britta Horn to say we need to fill 17 worthless districts we can't possibly win. No, let's win some. Let's spend all our time in the districts we can win, not on the districts we can't win. You know, there is some vague one where, okay, if you have a candidate, then the Democrats have to defend it. So they have to use up a little of their money. And I guess that's sort of valuable. But generally speaking, we got to find districts we can win and spend all our time and money there because we just don't have any other choice. So when Britta says we didn't fill the 17, well, great, Britta. Which ones you fill at
you give
one?
it a shot.
Why don't you spend all your time there?
Well, I totally agree. So in that last cycle, I don't know who, somebody contacted me and said, hey, you still have like 1 day. Find somebody for this seat. And I'm like, listen, like I've been out, or no, not 1 day. It was past the deadline. They said, we can appeal it, I think. And I'm like, okay, at this point, we've got good candidates all across the state that are relying on me, relying on us to get them data, resources, to strategize with them. And you think it's a good use of my time to be riding around Denver looking for a candidate?
Yeah.
If one comes willingly, praise Jesus. Great. And we can even, look for them some, but for that to be such a destructive talking point for Republicans, it just makes no sense. We have to run the Colorado GOP. We have to run this organization like it's a company. And if you owned a restaurant, it doesn't behoove you, if you own a restaurant in Monument, to be advertising up in Jefferson County. And that's what this is. They want to run an organization in a nonsensical way, in an emotional way, and we're not going to do that.
Well, the only reason, this is my theory on why they're doing that, is because they don't have anything else to attack you on, right? The Colorado Republican Party under you guys and the grassroots leadership had the best year in like decades, right? And so they can't, so instead, the only thing they can say is, oh, you didn't have some obscure candidate. And like you said, great if they want to run. But you know what, Chuck, what you were describing, where have we read that before? Oh, Blueprint Colorado.
Yeah.
That's how
Yes.
Ted Trippett did it. He said, they said, forget the district. We can look at the data. We know the places that we can make an inroad. We figure out what's our win number in those districts we can win. And then we pour everything into that. And then we take it back one at a time. And look what happened. It seemed to work. And so, yeah, let the rhinos go ahead and fake criticize you over something that isn't a problem, because, this is just my theory. Those people, they don't want to do the work, right? They've been losing in Colorado forever. They're happy to lose. And that's why they are so opposed to somebody like you, because you're like, hey, I'm actually getting stuff done, guys, making a difference. And they're
well, let's go to the AG race. Who cares if we run? Does it make any difference?
Well, you have that.
No, you don't have to. I mean, if you can't possibly win, we've had great candidates before. I mean, George Brocker was. I've had my differences in labor, but he was a great candidate. He got shellacked. He didn't even come close. Who cares if we run? Who cares if we run for governor? They're not going to win.
Well, if you're the chair of the party, you can't say.
Well, okay, but I don't care who runs for governor. I think we've got 3 or 4 I consider great possible ones, but I don't care because none of them are going to win because we don't have enough money to ballot harvest.
All right.
If you don't ballot harvest, you can't win the statewide election. And as I've said
this
so
is why
many
she
times,
isn't going to be chair of the party, though.
well, it'd be a different party. But
I mean, I understand that sentiment. I guess, when you're looking at being chair of the party, though, the thought process is, well, as I build out this infrastructure, as I lead us into this Trump era, an era where like I've told you, we've been fighting these horrible battles year after year, and we're just lucky to have a win here and there. I'm lucky when I win at one school board, right? Now, we've got the force of the federal government and President Trump behind us. He's already looking into stuff going on in Colorado. So if we work with the Trump administration, we build out an infrastructure, we make sense of what we're doing to help candidates, and we flip seats. We flip seats over time. Well, those candidates that are running for AG, that they're not going to win in this cycle, they might be candidates in another cycle for another office. They may become great members of the party that help us flip other seats. So, there's other benefits of running candidates for those seats. And so we'll just continue to chip away at it.
Right.
Well, for me, there's only, we're members of the State Central Committee. And so we'll be voting on the 29th. And there's only 2 things that matter to me. 2 things that make any difference. One, can you raise money? And you can raise money.
I can.
You've shown you can raise money. You've shown people like Dean, who's that's a good person to know. And you can raise money. So you pass that test. And the other test, which is the only thing that matters in Colorado, are we going to be a party who puts up candidates that are chosen by independents and Democrats? Is that going to be our candidate? Are those going to be our candidates? Because unless we change the present way, the establishment really had their greatest moment or potential moment in 22. Every one of those candidates for statewide office was a rhino, and in some cases an attractive rhino. I mean, Joe O'Dea, on the fact he wanted to kill babies and all that, was an attractive candidate. He was he was a self-made businessman. He had all the things. He had all the left-wing sort of talking points to throw in there. He hated Trump. And all of that did them no good. In a year in which Republicans, in a mid-year after Democratic elected, that was a good year for Republicans. It didn't turn out as good, but they elected none. So after that, Phil Anschutz and some of them have started to back away. They kind of go, it doesn't matter who we run as candidates. You go, duh. You finally figure
Charlene
that
says
out.
Eli's coming, Chuck.
Eli's coming, right. So the only thing that matters to me is if we have candidates who, if they do win, will make a difference. I mean, we began the show with 2 Republicans supporting an obscene bill to have the state government take over nutrition and have boards and everything else. And we had 2 Republicans backing it, so that when we go to the voters and say, look what they did, and they go, no, we didn't do it. You did it as much as we did. And therefore we have to have candidates who believe in something. Why pick a Republican out whose same ideas is a Democrat? I mean, why bother? Why bother?
Yeah.
So either you're for the opt-out and the lawsuit, or you're not.
Correct.
And that's the only divide I care.
Yeah.
And so I think I know this answer, but where do you stand on the opt-out?
Definitely for the opt-out. I mean, if you can't trust that the Republican vote is who chooses our candidate, then why have a party?
Yes. Yes.
Why? I mean, if we sail our values down the river and say, okay, independents, Democrats who register, who aren't ready, come vote in our primary, then again, why have a party? That's how, that is the single most devastating thing that Colorado did. I mean, that's why we are where we are. We have to undo it.
And Britta Horn is she'll be like KVB. She's learned to start lying about it because during the reorganization meeting, the grassroots won and the people who were for open primaries didn't overwhelmingly lose. It's probably 60-40. And if you throw in the elected officials, it maybe comes closer. But you are one who absolutely believes in it. You will, I assume, continue the lawsuit if you're elected and maybe run money for and raise money for it.
Of course, I plan to.
And so let me finish.
Okay.
And so, you pass the two most important tests.
The Chuck test.
The Chuck test.
Let me ask you this though too, because as we said in the show, you're the only announced grassroots candidate, and we all know there are other people out there still looking at it. And I don't know, this is sort of a statement and partly a question. To me, one of the biggest things that we have to do is make sure that we continue the grassroots leadership. I mean, would that be so? What I don't want to see happen is we all end up at this meeting and we divide our power, and then a Britta Horn wins. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we've got some things to talk about. There are people that are still talking about running. And then there are people that were going to run and now they're not running. So, Julie, that's why I got in early, because I wanted to let the party know that I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to lead. I've been demonstrating that for years. So, if people on our side of the party start to come in droves, the way I'm going to look at it is they're splitting the vote, because that side of the party is organized. And so
look at her, look at Britta Horn's endorsement list. Every rhino there is.
Correct. And so it's time for us to come together. We need doers in our party. We need people that are boots on the ground, that are knocking on doors, that are leading, that aren't afraid to take the media hits. And that's me. And so that's why I jumped into this race. And the future remains to be seen, but I'm going to keep running my campaign as aggressively as I run everything else. And hopefully the voters will see that I'm truly the best candidate to lead this state in the Trump era.
One of the criticisms you hear about you is you started out on the wrong side of the party with Eli Bremer and the evil Satanist rhino side, and then you saw the likeness. You had a conversion like Paul did on the road to it wasn't Aleppo, Damascus.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, I would compare it to what Todd Watkins experienced 2 weeks ago when he ran for chair. Everybody thinks that and I'm using this term, the establishment, I'm using that in an almost endearing way right now, right? Because that's the side of the party that has historically raised money, founded organizations. Like, these are the old members of our party. So that side of the party, they're really good at recruiting the young Republicans in, recruiting people like me in 6 years ago when I moved back to El Paso County. They want you to do the work, but they don't want to ever reward you. They don't care about new ideas. And as I told people, I said, when Todd goes to run for chair, he's going to find out really quick that you can deposit all you want in the bank of the establishment. And when you go to withdraw that capital, there's not going to be any.
Yeah.
Because they're not seeking positions for the right reasons. You and I, the people that are in this for the right reasons, we're out fighting for our kids. I'm driving to Durango. I'm spending my own money to stand against the school board. I'm going to the Capitol and I'm yelling at the title board when they deny our initiative. I'm doing the things that need to be done. And that some people in our party don't like that. They're intimidated by that. And that's why, I mean, I'm a controversial figure, but that side of the party, by and large, I was too much for them. I was too aggressive. I hold elected officials accountable, and that's a no-no. I mean, it just is. It's if you're elected, if you're, you can't ever say anything negative. Why? If I say it in a respectful way, why can't I call Lisa Frizzell and say, look, your vote today was garbage. Help me explain it.
Yeah.
Or help me understand it. I mean, talk to me.
Right.
And if we're not on the same page, even Joel Altman and I talked about this the other day. Okay, if we're not on the same page, then how can I help you understand what it means to be a conservative? How can I help hold you accountable to your constituents and not do damage to the party? Like, let's get that done. Let's get people to stand for their constituents the way they were elected to do so.
I don't know. It's pretty outrageous. No, that's great. That's great. Listen, Darcy, we have to go now. Thank you so much for coming on.
You've been wonderful.
Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Darcy Schoening there, guys, running for Colorado Republican Party chair. That is going to do it for us. We have to wrap up. Party Friday is coming up, so we will see everybody on Party
So much
Friday.
partying to do.
So much partying to do. That's
Take
right.
care, everybody.